Welcome to the BJCP Tasting Exam Prep Course from the Brewers Anonymous Homebrew Club in Orlando, Florida. I am Matt, and we're kicking off this course with Section 1, the Tasting Exam, and Lesson 1, the Exam Overview. But before we get started, I have to say this episode and this series is not affiliated with, nor endorsed or checked by the BJCP, the AHA, or any other organizations discussed in any episodes of this series. Before I start the actual lesson, I wanted to do a bit of a introduction to this lesson, and I think that's something that came up kind of in hindsight of writing this. This is actually the last thing I wrote in this course, what I'm about to explain here. It's because there is a lot of information that's going to be thrown at you in this first lesson, and it comes off without a preface like this. It kind of comes off as, this is what you must do to ace this exam and pass. And that's not the intent of the information in this lesson. This lesson's intention is to explain how many opportunities there are to gain and build points for this exam. So if you're going through this and it starts to feel a little overwhelming, keep that in mind. In this exam, you don't pass this part and fail this part and it's a total loss. There's points that you build against several different criteria that we're going to talk about. And that's what I'm explaining in this introduction lesson, where all those points come from. Not trying to say you have to master every single section. You have to do your best. And I think if you do your best, you're going to be fine. So kind of wanted to give a little bit of a introduction before I go into the material, because like I said, there's going to be a lot thrown at you. So let's actually get started with that right now. So lesson 1, the exam overview. This is what we're going to cover in this lesson. We're going to talk about what is the BJCP Tasting Exam. We're also going to explore how is the exam graded, what beers will you be judging, and then how to sign up for an exam. So let's get started with that first one. What is the BJCP Tasting Exam? Well, the tasting exam is the second part of the start of your BJCP certification journey, no matter how far you intend to take it. Whether you just want to get a certification and be done, or you want to be the first ever Grandmaster Level 30 certified judge, this is one of the 2 exams you must pass to start both of those journeys. The Grandmaster Level 3 scenario actually takes more than that, but that's a subject for another program. The first thing you need to pass is the BJCP Online Entrance Exam. And I'm going to assume that if you're taking this course, you've already done that. If you haven't, and this is all news to you, check out the extensive BJCP Entrance Exam prep course that we have at learn.brewersanonymous.org. Once that exam is passed, you have 12 months to sign up and take a BJCP Tasting Exam. The BJCP Tasting Exam is what this course is all and solely about. So what is the exam exactly? On the surface, and in regards to structure, it's actually pretty simple. It's a 90-minute timed exam judging 6 beers to BJCP-style guidelines, and the administrator and their assistants will bring out a beer once every 15 minutes throughout the entire exam. You'll be judging those beers on handwritten score sheets, and I'm going to repeat that last part again, on handwritten score sheets. We're going to talk more about this because it's an important and often overlooked part of the exam. I'd wager most of everyone watching this course does very little to possibly zero handwriting these days. And those that do most likely don't do the amount of writing that is required during this exam. So there's some ways to prepare for that. And I highly suggest you do prepare for that because it can be a very physically challenging obstacle in your exam taking if you're not ready for it. So how is this exam graded? Or better asked, what are you being graded on? Because the actual process of grading, that information isn't going to do you any good in this exam. So it's better to know what you're graded on. And in this exam, you will be graded on completeness. And completeness in terms of not only did you fill out the entire score sheet, but did you address the components of aroma, appearance, flavor, and mouthfeel? There's even more that we can cover under completeness. In fact, there's going to be an entire completeness section to this course, so stay tuned for that. Descriptive ability. How well are you relaying your experience with this beer? Does this beer have good hop flavor, or does it have strong hop notes of navel orange zest and flesh-like flavor with a moderate pine character underneath? I'm sure you see the difference of being able to express what you're experiencing in that aroma descriptor example. There's more on that coming as well. Perception. What characteristics did you pick out of the beer that coincides with the proctors and the examinees? And conversely, what did you find that no one else seemed to note? Feedback. This is the criteria for any constructive advice that you give to improve how the beer is scored. If it's an off flavor, did you offer a way to prevent this in the future? If it's a off style character, why is it off style? And what would be an improvement to this character in this beer's recipe? And as you guessed, there's going to be a section on this as well. And your scoring accuracy. This is where your score lines up with the master score set by the proctors. The closer your score is to the master score, the more points you'll receive for scoring accuracy for each beer. It's not overall, it's each of these scores, actually. Each of these components of what you're graded on are going to be considered for each score sheet. There is no section dedicated to this in this course. There's no strategy in trying to match the master score other than score it as accurately as possible. That's all you can do. The proctors are trying to score as accurately as possible as well. That's about all you can say about preparing for scoring accuracy, is just do your best. Like I just mentioned, each score sheet is graded separately and receives its own score, which is good. If you absolutely nail 4 of the 6 score sheets and don't do as well on the other 2 outside of completeness, which all score sheets should nail completeness, and we're going to talk a lot about that throughout the entire course, you'll probably still be in a pretty good position to get a good score. No guarantee, of course, in any of this. One last thing to note and be aware of as an examinee is that while the proctor score sheets have a heavy influence in the grading, all the score sheets are used to compare and contrast much of your points in the grading process. So what beers will you be judging? Well, there is only one guaranteed answer I can give to this question, and that is you will be judging 6 beers from the BJCP beer categories 1 through 26. That is all I can promise. I can say with some confidence, but no guarantee, that you'll likely only judge 1 beer per category. What I mean by that is you're probably not going to judge a 1A American Light Lager and a 1D American Wheat in the same exam. Those are both in the overall category 1 American Lager. There is a suggested flight and order in the BJCP beer judging examination procedures, and your exam administrator is most likely going to follow this. And that starts with a lager taken from styles 1 through 9, a German wheat or European sour ale, the German wheat being style 10, the European sour ale style 23, something British, Irish, or Scottish from the BJCP styles 11 through 16, an American ale from styles 18 through 20, a Belgian ale from style categories 24 through 26, and an IPA or strong ale from the BJCP style categories 17, 21, or 22. Again, not a guarantee, but a very high likelihood that this is what you can expect. Now that we know what this exam is, how do we take one of these tasting exams? Well, it's pretty easy, but with an asterisk. So first, the easy part. This is the URL for the calendar of where the tasting exams are. Now, that's kind of a long URL, so I do have the link in the lesson notes below. This is assuming you're watching this course at learn.brewersanonymous.org. If you're not, if you're watching this on YouTube, you should be watching it at learn.brewersanonymous.org because there's a ton more resources in the course online at this website than I'm able to put on with the YouTube post. And if all else fails, just search for BJCP Tasting Exam Calendar. That should be, if not the top result, it's going to be on the first page of just about every search engine I would expect. Now, here's that asterisk I mentioned. This exam at times can be difficult to find in your area. There's a limited number of exams that get approved each month. And along with that, there's typically only 12 seats allowed per exam. There have been some cases where the BJCP will allow an extension to 14 seats, but that's not typical and not something you can count on happening for sure. Then, finally, you may be looking for a form to fill out and sign up for one of these exams. Well, you're not going to find one. What you need to do, in fact, let me bring my mouse over here. You're going to need to click on one of these links to the organizer's name, and that will should launch your email client, depending on how your system's set up. If not, at the very least, you can right-click. This is a photo, so I can't demonstrate this, but you can right click on it and see what the email address is. You need to email the organizer to see if 1, there are seats available, and 2, can you sign up for one, and then they will follow up with whatever their answer is. Well, one last thing I don't have in my notes, but I see here in the screen, I might as well point out, make sure you're signing up for the right exam. Beer exams won't be highlighted. So these right here, these 4 are tasting exams. Cider is highlighted blue and mead is highlighted yellow at this point. These colors may change, but right now that's what it's like on the calendar. So when you find one in an area you're willing to travel to, or if you're lucky in your home city, make sure it's for the right style or subject, I should say. So we're talking about beer in this course, so make sure you see the beer in parentheses next to tasting when you go to sign up for your exam. And that leads us to the end of this lesson. So thank you for checking this out, and I'll see you in lesson 2.